Hello everyone, this is Josh Vision, and I'm here to give my Season 1, Episode 1 review of Penny Dreadful. So essentially we start off this episode with a mother and her daughter, and basically this quick sequence, for the opener of this episode ends with the daughter seeing her mother's body, her mother's body completely mutilated and disfigured. So after that, we meet this character of Vanessa Ives, and she's basically praying, really praying. We see her kind of going in and out of what it seems to be consciousness. It seems like she's possessed by something, at least at first glance. We see her looking at the cross, then we see a spider starts to make its way out of the cross. After that, we meet this character, Ethan, who's basically like an entertainer, like a showman. He's like a quick shooter, essentially. And he's talking about how he was a part of General Custer's army, and historically that was the last stand of General Custer, and I believe no survivor actually survived that encounter with the Native Americans, which is a point that Vanessa Ives mentions to Ethan a little bit after his show. And I believe she basically kind of sizes him up and tells him she tells him what she thinks of him, essentially. So she reads his body language really well. She says that he has a really clear stare or eye, but his hand is wobbling on the right because of alcohol. She mentions that he has on his left hand he has like a wound, like some type of contusion due to being embroiled with another man's wife. And she talks about the clothing he wears, and she also mentions the fact that she believes that he's actually from a wealthy family, but due to him making reckless decisions in his youth, and also mainly due to pleasure, he's basically found himself on hard times, essentially. He's accustomed to riches. He's not a poor guy, whatever, basically trying to make ends meet. So he's really impressed by that, and at one point, he actually offers her a little bit of whiskey, but she's like, nah. So she wants him to do a job for her to meet her later on at night, in London, like at a certain location. He's like, I don't really know London that well, and plus my show's going to Paris soon. She's like, I'm pretty sure you'll find the time. So he asks her what her name is, and she's like, well, he asks her, do you have a name? She's like, yes. And she smiles and she walks away. And I believe he's able to contact some type of sheriff, police, whatever, to get the exact location where she's supposed to meet him. So he meets her essentially at this opium den, essentially. And he also meets her and Sir Malcolm. And Sir Malcolm basically warns him, listen, don't be amazed or shocked by what you see. You got your gun, you got your weapons. Basically, just shoot like hell. If they catch you off guard, you're dead. So they go in, they meet these vampire-like creatures, like bloodsuckers, and I believe Sir Malcolm's actually able to kill one of them by driving a stake or something through them, or using some type of object, maybe a pipe. So I believe there's this big or really girlish voice, loud girlish voice actually, basically surrounding the area, and I believe Vanessa's trying to find where the voice leads. So when she tries to find the voice leads, we see this really weird looking creature, and I believe it's the leftovers of this creature actually, and I believe this creature is actually brought to some place. I forgot the name of it, for research essentially. So the guy they brought it to, he said to bring it to his understudy essentially, and this understudy is actually kind of a jerk. His name is Victor Frankenstein, I believe, and he was like, "Listen, I'm not into necromancy, basically, and just leave. I'm busy doing research." So I believe once Vanessa is able to basically unveil the covering, that drives Victor's interest, and he's able to open up the the exoskeleton of the creature, and basically underneath is basically some type of hieroglyphic, essentially Egyptian style. So once that's pointed out, I believe Sir Malcolm and Vanessa Ives goes to meet with Professor Lyle, I believe, who's like an Egyptologist, and he's entrenched in the whole Egyptian language, so on and so forth. So they took pictures of the body and the hieroglyphs, and he's able to basically, if I remember correctly, he was actually able to figure out the first meeting, and it was some type of curse or something, and that curse is from the book of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, And before he could basically unveil what the second code meant, he said, "Listen, let's have dinner, and we'll discuss this matter further." So they agreed to that. In regards to Vanessa Ives and Ethan, Ethan was like, "Yo, what the freak did y'all bring me into? Like, who are you people, essentially?" And she's like, "Listen, if you want to know more, come to our location. We'll tell you more." So when Ethan goes there, Malcolm's nowhere to be seen, but Vanessa's there. So Vanessa says, "Listen, we're basically part of this group that goes between the real world and the supernatural, essentially." I think she calls it like Desmonda or something, Desmondi, something along those lines. And she says, "Listen, a smart man would just be thankful he survived, take the money that he's owed, and just go his way and forget all about it. But she believes that he's an interesting man. And like she mentioned earlier, even though I forgot to mention when I first discussed it, she thinks that he's more complex than he lets on. And she believes that that's the reason why he most likely will stay, with them." And he's like, "Okay, what's the whole point of this whole journey? The whole point of this whole, killing supernatural beings?" And apparently, this is due to Malcolm's lost daughter, essentially. And that's the reason why they're trying to find her or trying to save her from something. So Ethan, he's done. He tries to leave. But here's the funny thing about it, right? The funny thing about this is that I believe Vanessa says, "Listen, pick a car before you leave. And don't just pick it. Look me in the eyes and then just go by your own intuition." So he does that. He picks the card, and Vanessa's really happy by the card he chose. So let's get to Sir Malcolm and Victor Frankenstein. So I believe Victor Frankenstein meets Sir Malcolm over at the Explorers Club due to Sir Malcolm inviting him. And Victor Frankenstein is really kind of annoyed about being there to begin with. He thinks a lot of the people who discover this, who made such scientific discoveries, like the planets, like geology, stuff like that, so on and so forth. He's like, that doesn't matter. What he's interested in is basically the difference between life and death, and what's in between that, and what makes it tick, so on and so forth. So he's much, like I mentioned before, he's really into life and death, and the cause and effect of each and all, so on and so forth. So I believe that Sir Malcolm also mentioned the fact that that's the reason why he chose him, because he wasn't afraid to go in death when they showed him when they showed him the corpse of that creature. And even through his conversation, he's much different from everybody else. He's a rebel, he's a maverick, and that he's trying to find a cure for his daughter to bring her back to, the real world, or the present world, for that matter. So I believe he also mentioned that if Victor takes the job, that he'll be well paid and compensated for, essentially. So Victor agrees, I believe. So we meet his daughter, actually, Sir Malcolm's daughter, and it was kind of a weird thing. It was like she was going back and forth. At one moment, she was crying and disappearing, and then she was screaming and disappearing. And then she just vanished, if I remember correctly. So Vanessa mentioned the fact that she felt somewhat guilty for the situation at hand, and it was due to her being a little bit too aggressive or something along those lines. And I was wondering what that meant, but they didn't really go into detail about it. So I believe the last thing we saw this episode, besides Ethan being outside the mansion being outside Sir Malcolm and Vanessa's house, and you're kind of left wondering if he's going to go in the house or not, is the fact that we see Victor entering his apartment, and we see that Victor is doing his own experiments trying to bring back this corpse through the use of electricity. Very Frankenstein, like the novels, horror novels, And it turns out it actually worked. The corpse came to life, and it was like a weird glare or stare they were giving to each other to end the episode. So I believe, you guys, that's all that happened in this episode. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments section. Thank you guys for watching my review, my first review of Penny Dreadful. I'll give this episode an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching once again. Adios.